Welcome to the Wisconsin Wellness Podcast. I'm Lori Groh, your host, mental health therapist, and practice owner. Each month, we'll showcase a central theme and provide weekly practical hacks, inspiring interviews, and valuable advice from wellness professionals. Our aim is to help you streamline your wellness and mental health journey. So let's start the show. Hi, welcome to the Wisconsin Wellness Podcast. I'm your host, Lori Groh. I've got Annie Delre with me today. She's a nationally board-certified health and wellness coach who's worked with hundreds of clients to help them build confidence, reduce stress, and actually follow through with their goals, right? So today we're going to be talking about accountability and boundaries and why those can be so important in our everyday life and why most of us probably aren't doing all the things we need to in regards to boundaries. It's definitely a thing that's come up for me. Actually, today was coming up in a few of my sessions. So I'm grateful for you to be here today, Annie.
Nice. Perfect timing.
Yeah. So Annie, why don't you tell me just a little bit? I always like to hear backstory of how you got into this work because it's always interesting to me. It's always different. Can you share a bit of how you got involved in coaching?
So this is how it happened. Me, like many others, grew up in a dysfunctional house. And there was 6 siblings total. So a lot of personalities, right? So 2 parents, 6 kids, raised in the Catholic Church. So just meaning like we were brought up in that realm. Okay.
Yeah.
If it paints a picture. So I was like, what the heck is going on? Like, how can all these people be raised by the same parents, yet we're so different and have had different childhoods? Like even my sisters came 12 years later than me. And my brothers, we were all like a year and a half. And even like being a gal growing up with 3 brothers. You know, these things all impact us. So all of this to say, in my bachelor's, I studied psych because I was like, what is going on? Like, why are humans like this? I don't understand. Like, I'm so curious. That's what it was. I was just so curious. Yeah. And I was like, there's a whole degree that studies humans.
Right.
Oh my gosh. And while I was in there, essentially the professors were like, there are things you can do, but essentially you go into the research field or you become a therapist. That's it. And I didn't want to do either of those. So I was a person who like inhaled books. And one day I read a coaching book and I was like, this is what I want to do. Yeah. This is my dream job. And everyone told me I was crazy. They're like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
Because this was 2010, I think, when I got into it.
Now I feel like it's a very different world out there. But 2010.
Yes. Mm-hmm. They were like, life coach? Like even I have a hard time using that word now. And then to close that all up, I found a master's degree in it in integrative wellness coaching. So because coaching can also be kind of scary. Anyone can call themselves a coach. And that worried me.
You're right.
So I wanted to make sure I had that backing. Also, everyone told me I was crazy for that. They're like, you're paying for a degree in this?
You can just type it out. Right. But you're so right. You're so right, Annie. Like a couple of things. I have 3 brothers, so we got that a little bit. That's a scenario. What wonderful, wonderful scenario. And then also very similar where I was just constantly curious and just fascinated by how one thing can affect somebody so differently than someone else. And especially in a family unit. And how does that work? And there's so much complexity to it. It's just never ending. To me, never ending as far as I'm always going to be interested in learning more and more and more and more. Yeah.
Lifelong learner.
Yes. And also too with coaching, I think that piece is extremely important. Having that educational background and letting people know, hey, just be mindful of this. Somebody that's doesn't have a degree or this educational background doesn't necessarily mean that they're not going to be good at that role. But there are also things, right, to consider of like not harming and consultation and how to protect them, how to protect us. There are these other things that are a major component to it.
Definitely.
So I'm a therapist, you're a coach, and maybe while we're talking about this, we could talk about how that could be different. Do you have any thoughts on what you notice is different if somebody's saying, I want to reach out to a coach versus a therapist?
When I introduce people, especially if they're brand new to coaching, I explain in the shortest way possible the difference between the two so they can get a feel. So therapy, you are coping with the present, but you may be spending quite some time in the past, especially in the beginning.
Yeah.
And deep diving into that why. Well, why am I like this? And why did I act this way?
Mm-hmm.
There's diagnosis involved, right? Because of insurances. Yep. There's sometimes trauma involved.
Yeah.
But also, how do we define trauma? Sometimes there may not be specific goals and action steps. So there would be homework or reflections. It's not that we talk for 40 minutes, whatever, an hour, and then you leave. See ya. So that's kind of how I describe therapy. Yeah. Sometimes I'll add other things, but coaching, you are coping with the present, time, stress management, communication, boundary setting, as you said. I work with a lot of clients about leveling up at their job or even leaving their job if they're not fulfilled. But the main difference is we are always forward moving. So it's very much the past is the past. It is what it is. And it's not to discount it. But when I see people have, are very, this is kind of aggressive, but more of that victim mindset. And I've always been like this and this is how it is. Like that hopelessness, that's when I refer them to therapy first. I say, this doesn't mean you can't do coaching ever.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean you're broken. You're not going away to get fixed. But I do feel you should get support overcoming this challenge with a licensed therapist.
Yeah.
And then when you feel, more prepared or ready for some more forward movement and action steps.
Mm-hmm.
But if a person's more combative, that doesn't work. That's how I know you may not be open-minded to coaching at this moment.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's a great way to describe it. I would say that's how I would describe it too.
Oh,
where,
perfect.
At times therapy can be depending on, again, there's so much depending on specialties and framework and modalities and all of that. But there can be a very big distinction on what lens are you using? Are you in more present and moving forward of what do we actually want to do right now, right? But I can see how there'd be such a big benefit in saying like, this is what this time is for.
There you go.
It's a little bit more concrete and it's not necessarily in that exploratory space. Because therapy can be that, so much of that, of understanding, connecting. And in this instance, it's like, okay, it sounds like this is what we need to do and what's getting in the way and how do we shift things, right?
That's exactly it.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's exactly it. What's going on right now. And I will say, especially in the beginning, like my first my first session, I'll say, we have to visit the past today. I don't know anything. We got to paint a picture. If you have a strict military dad and you rebelled in your teens and you started dating with that rebellious mindset, like this is important to know. But after today, okay.
Right.
Okay, you're a child of divorce. I don't want to discount that. It tells me a lot about how you were raised. But now what?
Right. 100%. One of my mentors, he would say, all right, I'll give you some time to move through this and time's up. Because they're coming in. The reality is people are coming in and he does couples work. So it's a very different scenario because you are looking for movement, right? So, and that I think is also a very important distinction of there's not a lot of, let's be in that empathetic space. It's more like, yes, I understand. And then how do we get this to look different? And so that processing is so different of like, yes, but also you're here for this. And so this is how we get there.
Here's a roadmap.
Yep.
Where therapy, I don't want to say there is no roadmap, but you have no idea what's going to come up.
Right.
Especially childhood, when you start digging into that.
So I know we were going to talk about boundaries. And so that might be different too in our worlds of, when somebody's coming in and they might be struggling with boundaries, there's a lot obviously that can go with that. It can can affect how we're feeling about ourselves. It can affect time management, right? It can affect how we're thinking, how we're feeling, all of these things. When somebody's coming in and seeing you and saying, like, are they directly saying, hey, I have issues with boundaries? Or is it something that just starts to show itself?
That's a great question. And I would say both.
Yeah.
Some know exactly it. Like they're like boundary setting, and they'll like know some of the psych words as well.
Mm-hmm.
Like they'll say something such as like, because I didn't set boundaries, it was so easy for me to get gaslighted. And now, and because of my narcissist ex. And I'm like, you've been studying, like you've been talking to a therapist, or you've been reading some books. I know that you understand. And other clients will share different examples. And I would say something such as like, that sounds like something such as boundary setting. Would you say that's a challenge for you? Their eyes light up and they're like, yes, that's what it is.
Yeah.
You brought up such a fantastic topic that a lot of my clients have is time management. And because of the lack of boundaries, they're suffering with their time management.
Yeah. I would imagine. How does that not impact your time?
Because you're most likely a people pleaser, saying yes and not saying no. So
let's talk about that, because that has come up. That's on the agenda today.
Oh, perfect.
So let's say somebody's in that space. What are some of those first steps? What do you do to help them move through some of that? Obviously, it takes more than just a podcast episode to get somebody to that space. But what are some of the things?
Yeah. So first I start with some clarification questions. Like I'll say, I'm just curious, are you experiencing this personal and professional, or is there one setting that you find it more?
Mm-hmm.
And for the most part, right, it's going to be personal and professional.
Yeah.
But some of my clients, it's strictly professional. For example, the moms, like they are the boss mom at home. They have it together.
Right.
Their kids listen and have a healthy relationship. But at work, they're the doormat.
Yeah.
And that, I guess, cognitive dissonance, right? You're getting one fix over here and not the other. So your brain is trying to like, am I awesome or am I doormat?
Right.
What?
Right.
So that's the first clarifying question. What are we focusing on? And the next is, and this is kind of going against what I said before, but I'll say, can you give me an example of a time where your boundary was crossed?
Yeah.
Because now I want to know, like, is this your coworkers that you're mostly upset with? Is it the higher ups? Is it your partner? Is it your kiddos? Especially things you have control over, such as your friends. I'm like, oh, so this is your friends, the people you choose to hang out with. And sometimes I'm a little sassy like that. I read how my client is, especially if we've had a long-term relationship. They know I'm going to say sassy things. Yeah. But also read the room. Like I'm appropriate to the people who I know can't take that bluntness. So,
or different personalities, right? And different like openness in that, and sense of humor in where we're at. Yeah. Everybody's different on that.
Definitely. Okay, so for boundary settings, one is, I'll give a work example. Is that okay? Or should I be concentrating more on personal?
Yeah, that sounds great.
Oh, okay. A lot of my clients, what they'll say is, I'm working on too many projects. And actually, because I am a high achiever, they're giving me more.
Mm-hmm.
Or I'm not being recognized for my work. My boss doesn't respect. I'm the only woman on the team, and they always make one client I'm working with now. She's the only woman on the team. So they make her do all the event planning. They make her order the coffee and pick up the lunch. So this is the phrase I have them say. So someone comes to you and asks you to do another project, especially a higher up. Okay.
Mm.
And you say, okay, thanks for thinking of me. That's awesome. Right now I'm working on project blank, blank, and blank. Deadlines are blank, blank, and blank. What should I prioritize? Then it's on them.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now you just pass the buck. Whatever they say, you're going to go with. But now they know you're working on 13 projects. You're trying to close the loop.
Right.
So that's a big one. Just that verbiage alone. Right.
That's huge right there, of putting that information out there. They're making that decision of what do you actually want me to be focusing in on.
Yeah.
Probably not the best use of my time. Not that I don't care for other people and get them coffee.
That one infuriated me. I was like, oh, we're shutting that down. That is not appropriate. You have a degree in engineering. Like, no, like mechanical engineering. I mean, any person's job in a company is important. That's why we have people in different roles, or else it wouldn't function.
Mm-hmm.
But that wasn't her job description.
Yep. Is directly related either right to the stereotypes, or also, I mean, it can be also of saying yes. Even talking about this right now, it reminds me of a growing up scenario where, I had 3 brothers and they would always ask me to get them stuff, and be like, okay, I'm a little kid. So I'm like, okay, yes. And so, yeah. And it takes a minute to be like, no, actually, you got this.
Do you have 2 legs?
But it really, I have to pause and think, because I'll just be like, oh yeah, I was trained to, get my brothers some Kool-Aid or whatever it was that they wanted. So I'm sure it takes a bit to get out of that, right?
Definitely. Especially when you've taken the caregiver role. I know for a fact I took the caregiver role with my brothers, or especially my sisters, because they were 12 years younger. They're twins.
Yeah.
And especially when motherhood then comes, okay, I take care of my kiddos. And then you're the mom at work.
Mm-hmm.
So, she always remembers everyone's birthday. She always gets the birthday cards. Well, why is that her job?
Right.
Like, she has 15 projects too. She's presenting today also.
Yeah.
So circling back, because I just took as far, of letting them know what you're working on. And this is especially valuable when you're not getting recognition for the work you're getting. Another thing I try to tell clients is take a few deep breaths before you go, because you're having this conversation matter of fact, not heated.
Yeah, I think that piece is also so helpful, of taking a moment, right? Taking a couple breaths to get a little regulated, because how is that not upsetting, right? You're a person. You're going to feel a little something from that. And then addressing it in a way of, this is the facts. This is what's happening.
And I love that, the facts. This is measurable results. I could show you my deadlines. I could show you where I'm in the project.
Right. You know that feeling when you meet someone and within 5 minutes, you just know you could talk to them for hours? Actually, that's one of my hiring requirements at Shoreside Therapies. All of our therapists are highly educated, experienced, specialized in all sorts of different areas. But the real test is, can I imagine sitting with them for an awkwardly long road trip? As a self-proclaimed awkward introvert myself, I've realized how important this is. Finding the therapist isn't just about credentials. It's about feeling comfortable enough to show up as yourself. The good, the bad, the I just cried watching a dog commercial version of you. And that's why I'm so picky about who joins our team. The best part? Our biggest referral source is our own clients. So that means people aren't just getting the support they need. They love their therapist so much, they send their friends, family, and even their dog walker to us. So if you're looking for a therapist who not only knows their stuff, but also feels like a real person, then check us out. Shoreside Therapies, where therapy is real, human, and maybe even a little fun. Yes, it can be fun sometimes. So I'm guessing some of that's challenging, but tell me a little bit, what are those return sessions after? This is, hey, try this, let's do this.
I'll be honest, they love it. So some will come and be like, I'm so sorry I didn't try it. I just chickened out. And then I'm like, no problem. Let's reevaluate. So
yeah,
actually, I had a client, I think it was last week. We had our 3rd or 4th session, and that was one of her activities. And she came and she's like, Annie, I couldn't do it. So what we did is we worked on template emails. So she didn't have to have these conversations in person anymore. We wrote the emails together and she just sent it every time. Now, some were for colleagues and some were for the higher ups, and appropriate verbiage for each.
Yeah.
And then she built the confidence. And I said, it's time to train your team. It's time to train them. You can't answer 100 emails. You can't keep answering Slack all day. We are scheduling time.
Right.
You're putting it on your calendar. Your team's going to know. And don't answer it within 5 seconds. And we're going to mute it for your downtime. And we're going to set the Pomodoro timer.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that too, of it's going to be perfectly normal for that feeling to arise and not do that homework. Right. And you're not dismissing it or saying, oh, no big deal. Let's not even do this anymore. Okay, what?
Next topic.
Yeah, let's just pick something else. But okay, let's try something that can get you closer to that and you'll get used to it. So what is a step that's a bit easier and also allows you to still achieve those goals until you're ready to do it? And then those moments though, when somebody is doing that, what they were so scared about.
They're so relieved.
So relieved, right?
Yeah, I actually, and I'm sure you do this too, kind of allowing them to catastrophize. And I know normally we would shy away from that, but they're like, I'm embarrassed to present. Well, what's the worst that can happen? I'll stumble on my words. And what's the worst that would happen then? Well, people would think I'm incompetent. What would happen if your coworker saw? I'm sure you do this line of questioning too, but making them realize, no, you're not going to die. You won't. I know panic attack may be a concern, especially if you've experienced it in the past, but you also know you can get through them. And now let's talk about a technique for panic.
Yeah.
So, and another thing that's coming to mind that I know you'll know about is the exposure therapy. So I kind of explain it to them with little chunks of, we're not calling this exposure therapy. That I'm not a therapist.
Yeah.
I just want to introduce the concept of kind of what we're going to do in coaching.
Right. And a lot of times, there is that relief of, okay, yep, I did it. And maybe it was a 6 out of 10, that presentation, but I didn't trip and fall and fart and that sort of imagination. Or what's even more fun is why not lead with that? Try that out, trip and fart and fall. Then you can go from there. Yeah. Try it out.
Sometimes I tell them that too. I'm like, purposely mess up, see what happens.
Yeah.
And the other thing, I mean, I guess you can see my personality a bit now. I was like, make jokes, laugh. And one girl was like, I'm afraid I'm going to lose my train of thought. Yeah, make a joke out of it. Be like, oh my gosh, I'm so excited to be here. I don't even know where I'm going. Like, people love that.
100%. Yeah. No one is connecting to somebody that's 100% just perfect constantly.
No, you're intimidated by them and not in a inspiring way. And I'm going to shy away from you.
Yeah, I love that. I love that idea too of how to get somebody to kind of move through that and be okay with it not going perfect, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because that's the hardest part, right? So talking yourself and actually doing it, but then being okay with whatever the outcome is.
Yes. So in work, that's one way, right? To say no and going into the time management. Are there other things that come up? And you're like, oh yeah, this is a real common thing that they're experiencing with boundaries.
Yeah, 2 things are coming to mind. If we're talking relationship-wise, a lot of them with family, sometimes with friends. So something such as, I know a few months ago, I was working with a lady whose one friend always mooched off her when she went out. But because this woman didn't set boundaries for years, so the friend was just used to it. I'll pay you back.
Yeah.
Never paid back. This is like a 20-year friendship, right? The other topic that comes up a lot outside of relationships is people's boundaries with their phones. And this is all ages. So the kiddos that I've worked with on their iPads all the way up to, I think the oldest client that I've worked on with digital boundaries is in her 60s.
I think a lot of people right now are feeling very overwhelmed with our devices and the access and what feels okay and not okay to setting boundaries in that world.
That's exactly it. What feels okay and what doesn't. And I always say train people, even though I'm making them sound like dogs, but train them. Don't answer immediately. Even if you have your hands in your phone, don't answer immediately. And that will become the norm. My friends and family know the chances of me answering within minutes is so slim. Actually, I don't know if this would work for everyone, but I keep my phone on Do Not Disturb at all times.
Me too. All times.
They know.
Yeah.
Also, I don't have kids. I know some parents, they give me pushback on that with kiddos. Okay. But also, sometimes I think we have really convenient excuses. So for example, I talk to my clients a lot about nighttime and boundaries with your phone at night, right? One of my recommendations is don't have your phone in the room or at least within arm's length. And they'll say, well, my phone is my alarm. But also there's $10 alarms on Amazon and probably at Five Below. So there is a solution. You just don't want to give up Instagram at night.
Yeah. 100%. And I get it also, right? Like, I like those, all the cooking videos that I'll never make. I like looking at all those wonderful, beautiful salads. I'm like, oh, I can't wait to make this, save it, never return to it. But
Never.
that's such a great point, though, of it kind of even going back to the do not disturb. I have 4 kids. But I also have it on do not disturb. You can also let people know, call twice. Because if I'm in a session and somebody's talking to me about their trauma or their past or grief, I'm not going to be just answering the phone. And so why can't everybody have that? Where I have a really very legitimate excuse.
Right.
I'm with somebody. But why can't that be always the excuse? Like, I'm with my kids right now. And that should be the norm and what's expected.
Yeah.
To me, anyways.
Right. Or even, hey, how about mom wants 5 minutes to herself? This is this wild notion, like mom is home and she wants alone time.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. So talking a bit about that idea of the boundaries and phones, right? And the digital boundaries, I do find that that's coming up so often for people. And what do you see as part of the reason why that's so hard for people to set up? Like, especially when it's the phone at night thing, it can be a whole other thing. But that idea of the interruptions at all times.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think's hard with that for people?
I think there's a few things. So for example, I think there's a lot of lonely people. And I don't know if they would even identify as lonely or if that's why they're feeling this constant need for connection.
Yeah.
Or even, let's say they're surrounded by people, they're unfulfilled. So they are just searching for that fulfillment in all the wrong places.
Yeah.
Some of my clients say they're bored, but also they're not accomplishing their writing goals or their workout goals, or they're spending one-on-one time with the kiddos or going out with gal pals. Like, so are you bored or are you just not using your time productively?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm also a person that's like, schedule chill time, schedule nothing time.
Right. Right.
I don't think we have to be productive at all times. Actually, I think that burns us out, right?
Mm-hmm.
But if you don't feel good every time you scroll, then what are we doing here?
Yeah.
How is this serving you other than your dopamine level?
Mm-hmm.
One of the first activities I have if my clients aren't ready to like delete apps or something such as that or take a big step is, all right, tonight's homework is going into your social media and unfollowing everyone that doesn't make you happy.
That's great homework, great advice. It's one step towards here's a boundary. I'm not allowing for things I don't want to come at me.
There you go.
Yeah.
Yes. Because our algorithms are curated. Sometimes there's some gross stuff they keep in, but you don't have to see the girl you went to college with who has a bigger house than you. You don't need to see your cousin that you compete with just get pregnant with your second kid while you're on IVF.
You don't. Yes.
You got to stop.
Yeah. Well, even thinking like of what you're saying about, I don't need to let this in my world of the friend I went to high school or to college with that has a bigger house than me. I mean, we do that in our regular lives, right? We're not reaching out to that person to say, tell me about all your cool stuff. We do that in a different way in the outside world, but for some reason, I think we're maybe just not used to it, but we think we need to see all this stuff. We need to know, and we're curious. Me and you are, we know that. And we just want to know what's happening all the time, right? But recognizing you can do this, but you're going to feel this. You can check all this stuff out, but you can't also feel in control and feel like you're doing well. It's figuring out what's this actually doing for you.
And sometimes what the homework is get this app. I'll tell them a specific free app or give them recommendations. And this week's homework is gathering data. We're going to see how much you're on your phone and what apps you're using. That's all we're doing. You don't have to stop using an app. You don't have to stop at night. And a lot of times I'll call things experiment.
Mm-hmm.
Let's gather data or let's experiment.
Yeah.
And they're like, okay, it's not a goal. Okay, let's experiment. And I'm like, okay, great. Let's do it.
Yeah. Yeah, the language, I feel like I use that word a lot too, because it's not this commitment to it. And there's not a judgment. It's let's find some information because that is going to be really valuable. You might not even know you're on it. There is a complete lapse in time and understanding time when you're in that dopamine kind of tunnel or the doom scrolling or whatever we're doing. It just steals our time. It's like, oh, turns out I have no idea what I was doing for these 2 hours. So I might as well be doing something that I plan to do or want to do.
Actually, I'm so glad you said this. So when my clients are working with me on time management, a lot of times we try time blocking. It's one of the first things we'll try. But for people who are not ready to totally jump in on that, I have them go backwards. So I'm like, at the end of every day or at the end of every other day, go back, time block, do it in color chunks. So green is family, blue is work. And, I mean, obviously they can pick their own colors. I'm just giving examples. Pink is self-care. And what you're going to do is look at every day in your colors. And red, this is the only color I tell them they have to do. Red is, I don't know where this time went.
Yeah.
I don't know what I did. This was probably scrolling on the couch. Like,
right.
There's a good chance this is when I watched 17 episodes of a sitcom from the 90s, right?
Right.
And this is coming from a person who's done these things. I'm not saying...
Yeah. Gilmore Girls, Seinfeld, let's do it up. Yeah.
Thank you. Right. Like, okay. And that's where things really start happening when they look at the colors, because they're like, Annie, I have so much red. And I know I told you that I wanted to work on my screenplay, but...
Yeah. In that conversation, I talked to my kids too about this too. I'm like, honestly, I don't have a ton of regrets in my life, but I will say that one of my biggest regrets is that I spent a lot of my life watching TV. I just did hours and hours and hours. I'm like, I could be a brilliant pianist. I could have been doing something. You can't obviously go back, but it robbed me of something I didn't know that I was going to want at some point. So Annie, I could talk to you for another 4 to 5 hours, but that would also maybe be what we were just talking about. We would lose all of our time and be like, what happened?
Talk about no perception of time. Right.
So I want to hear a little bit before we end, like a little bit more about, how somebody can reach you, what services you offer. I definitely think your wellness manual should be on everybody's list to get. But why don't you tell me a little bit about how someone can reach you and what they could look forward to doing with you?
Yes. Okay. I definitely encourage people to go to my website. I'm not a huge fan of social media.
Mm-hmm.
So I know sometimes people are like, follow me on Instagram. You can. I just don't post often unless I have an event.
Yeah.
So my website, which is just my first and last name.com, the wellness manual is awesome. It's over 100 pages. It's finance, social life. I mean, we talk every topic on there. A lot of trackers and templates. And also I do a 3-month program. So that includes weekly sessions and also weekly text check-ins.
Oh.
So these are people who are like, and sometimes I'll do 6 weeks. Like, for example, my client's diagnosed with ADHD. They're like, 3-month commitment. Get the heck out of here, Annie.
Right.
I'm like, okay, let's do 6 weeks. A month is a little short. Let's do 6 weeks.
Yeah.
But these are people who are like, so I don't know if this is appropriate to say, but my program's called How to Get Your Stuff Together, except not the word stuff.
Yeah.
So these are people who are like, I need a game plan. I need clarity.
Right.
I absolutely need accountability. And that's a really cool program. And I have some modules that I taped so they also can learn outside of our one-on-ones.
Which is awesome. I love when it's a hybrid of, the interaction, but then also here's some extra information, or, if you have extra time here, you could do this before we meet. And it just adds this extra layer to the work, which is amazing. And I also like that 3-month program because in general, with my experience as well, not the 6 weeks, usually they can be if they're quick.
Yeah.
But, usually it becomes a little bit harder and then better. And 3 months to me is just a great point of reference because we chunk that out in so many different ways in our life of, quarterly, we're going to do this quarterly. What are the next 3 months looking like? And if you have that foresight of your next 3 months, you get to control a bit more of those next 3 months. So that's also, I think, really important. And sounds like that's very integrated in your work.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, you're here for accountability. And as you mentioned, I think coaching is very similar where, yeah, we're doing, for the most part, awesome in the beginning. You're so excited, but there is a dip.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes it's around the 6-week mark
Mm-hmm.
because that would be like just when we are conquering. Like, for example, some of the modules is motivation or habit tracking, or excuse me, just habits, stress management. But how do you know these stress management tools are working unless you've conquered it multiple times, or one's on confidence building?
Mm-hmm.
If you get one opportunity in the next 3 weeks to present at work, well, in 3 months, you might have 4 opportunities.
Right.
Let's work on this.
Right. Right. And how comparison can be just a huge way to feel that additional accomplishment and confidence, and also that we can know where we grew. And so what does that look like after that point, which I think is a really useful and helpful way to look at what progress is for people too.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Because it's like living with someone in the house who's losing weight. You don't really notice it. And when other people see them, like, holy macaroni. Yeah. But you didn't notice either unless you looked at pictures of progression.
Right. 100%. And kids growing is another great example. It's like, oh, yeah, I guess you do look different.
He's a head taller than me.
Yeah.
Last time I saw you, you were down here. Right.
Right. Yes. Let me pinch those cheeks, you know. So, Annie, thanks so much for talking with me today. I hope we get to talk again.
Me too. Thanks for having me. You're awesome.
Yeah. Yes, this was really great. And I'll put all your information in the show notes, and we'll talk soon.
Woo! Thank you.
All right. Take care. Quick favor, subscribe and rate the podcast to help us bring you more expert guests, transformative conversations, and valuable resources. Your support makes all the difference. And don't miss out. Big things are happening. Join the Mindful Advocacy Book Club, kicking off April 17th at 12 p.m. CST. Our first book, Hope in Darkness, is free on Amazon right now. Go ahead and click that link in the show notes. Plus, you get access to exclusive live wellness webinars to grow, learn, and connect. Sign up for our newsletter or visit Wisconsin Wellness Podcast to register. Until next time, stay well, Wisconsin.